here, I want to talk quickly about a question that came up in one of the Facebook groups the other day, and that was the how to phrase suggestions on past tense, present tense, things like that, because it is important and it does make a difference. But before we go into that, I want to digress a little bit and refer to a couple of studies that were done on praise and also goal setting, because it's kind of important to understand these so that you can understand why you need to phrase things in a certain way. There was a study done a little while ago by a woman called Carol Dweck. Now, if you know anything about educational psychology, you probably have heard of Carol Dweck, and this study is now being taught in a lot of schools as well. And what she did is she took 400 students across America and she then said, right, we're going to do an easy IQ test. So she did it with an IQ test. And she, the IQ test was fairly simple. It was 10 questions, relatively simple. And they split them into two groups. The first group, they were praised for their intelligence. So they were told something like, oh, you must be really intelligent, you did really well on this, you're such a clever boy, you're such a clever girl. Sounds really good, doesn't it? Sounds really positive. So the first group, they were praised for their intelligence. The second group, though, they were praised for effort. They were told, wow, you must have really worked hard to be able to do this. You really put a lot of effort into this. Now, this sounds like a very subtle difference, but the results were truly astounding, because then they gave them a second test and they gave them two options. The two options were, they were told, okay, you've got two tests you can pick. There's two versions. You can pick a harder version, and this gives you a great opportunity to learn and grow, or you can pick the easy version, which will be pretty much like the test you just done. And then they gave them a choice to do the tests. Now here's the thing. The group who were praised previously for their intelligence, 67% of them picked the easier test. But the group who were praised for effort, wait for this, 92% of them picked the harder test. Think about that. Now think about how this could relate to structuring suggestions. This is really, really interesting. If you start praising your client and saying, oh, you're so good, you are so good at this, you are a lovely person, you're an excellent person, praising all their self-esteem and things like that, trying to build up self-esteem, are you really helping them to be resilient? Well, not according to these figures. So one of the things you want to be doing then clearly is praising effort. Praising the effort. That's what you want to be doing. And I'm not a big one on sort of suggestive therapy as such, just giving random suggestions. I'm certainly not a fan of monologue therapy. If you know anything about me, I'm not into scripts at all. But this sort of thing is really important. Then I want to draw attention to some other research. I'll go briefly over this. This was done by some researchers called Pham and Taylor. That's P-H-A-M and Taylor. This was done about 20 years ago. Really important study, again on students. And what they did was they looked at students and they did a couple of visualization exercises to see which would be more effective. The first group of students, they had them imagine, they've got this test coming up, they had imagined that they were going to succeed at the test, that they were going to pass the test, all this sort of thing. Had them imagine that over and over and over again. The second group, they had them imagine doing all the processes that were necessary in order for them to do the test, to complete the test and pass the test. So here they had them imagine doing all the processes, all the things they would need to do in order to pass the test. And at the end of the thing, the results were the group that imagined the processes far exceeded the results of the ones who imagined just passing the test. Now think about this from the point of view of your clients. You're a weight loss client. If you have them picture and imagine yourself walking down a white sandy beach in a string bikini, the size and shape you want to be, that is not going to motivate them. It's going to do nothing. It sounds good, but it isn't going to work. And it's the same, so you don't have them picture or imagine or think of themselves at that particular weight. It will have no effect on them. What you want to do is to have them focus on the process. So imagine yourself sitting down to a meal, chewing your food slowly, and getting a full feeling in your stomach much sooner than usual, and pushing the plate away from you. Have them imagine the processes. Have them imagine doing exercise. All those things. Imagine them. Have them imagine doing the processes. That's the key. And this, so if you're setting goals for your client, it's really important that you break it down into the processes rather than just the end goal. Because all this stuff of SMART goals and things like that, they're not as successful as people would like you to believe, particularly if you look at the research. So these are all things that you want to be taking in your head when you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to structure a session? What sort of suggestions am I going to give? Now, the topic that came up on this Facebook group the other day, someone asked the question, how do you phrase the suggestions? Do you phrase in a way that's like, you are blank, 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 or you will blank, 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 blank? Now, bearing in mind what we've just said, which one do you think is going to be better? Because there's a big difference between those two things. And the difference is association and dissociation. Because if you say you are something, you're implying that they are that now. It's present tense. Now, if you say to someone who's, say, 20 stone, and you put this thought in their mind, you are now 10 stone, you're now the size and shape you want to be. Notice how great that feels. What you're doing is building a delusion. It doesn't provide motivation. At the level of the brain, it's a delusion. So you're not doing too much at all. However, if you say you will now do X, 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 we're now working with the process. So you want to be working with the process. So you really need to make this subtle difference. There is a world of difference. Now, if you're talking about something that, for example, a smoker, where the change is instant, then you can use this. You want them associated. You are now a non-smoker. You are now a non-smoker for the rest of your life. That's fine, because that's associated right now. The moment they leave the office, they're going to be that way. But the person who's coming to lose 10 stone, don't be telling them you are the size and shape you want to be. You are this, you are that. That's not going to work. That is going to create a delusion. So make sure when you're structuring these things that you do it in a way that focuses on the processes that they need to do in order to reach their goal. Because it's really, really important. And there's a huge amount on verb tenses. I mean, in NLP, at the practitioner level and the master practitioner level, there's a huge amount of things that you can do to put the problem in the past and things like that using verb tenses, which is far more in depth than I want to go into right now. But just from that point of view, you need to be thinking about association and dissociation. The client that I'm working with here, do I need to create a dissociated image? Do I need to create an associated image? Are you looking for a behavioural change right now and an emotional change right now, or an identity change right now? Then maybe you want to have them associated. If you're looking for how they want to be in the future, then maybe you want to do it dissociated. Golden rule in NLP, present state, associated, desire state, dissociated. So really, really start thinking about how to structure your suggestions in such a way that is going to add motivation rather than create delusion. So I hope that gives you some ideas. I don't want to go into too much depth, at this stage, because it is a big area. And I say, if you study NLP at the practitioner level or the master practitioner level, they really go into depth on verb tenses and how to use them to future-place problems or put them in the past. But it's too complicated for right now, and it's really more of an interactive process. But just take this on board right now. When you're thinking about structuring suggestions, think about the research of Carol Dweck on praise. Think about the research by Pham and Taylor on process versus outcome, and then structure your suggestions accordingly. I hope that gives you some ideas. If you have any questions, by all means, get in contact with me, leave me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Cheers. Bye now.